that we always hear from people living in small towns are, nothing ever happens here. This is a safe and quiet place. A place where some don't even lock their doors. But is everything ever as it seems? When tragedy strikes a small town, people may take things at face value and move on from what happened, while others make the decision to look deeper and uncover secrets people may hide behind a white picket fence, a warm smile, or a glowing reputation. Hello everyone, and welcome into my new series, Beauty Book Club. I'm super excited to be starting this book club because I'm someone that has always loved to read, leisurely anyways, not for school so much, but I have always loved to read, and I just want to share my love of reading with you guys at home. And if any of you are readers like I am, I hope you enjoy the books that I will be suggesting to you throughout this series. In this series, I will be discussing the first 3 chapters of the book, and you can decide for yourself if you want to read the book or not. I do highly suggest reading the books that I suggest because they are really, really good books, especially if you're into the mystery thriller kind of area. And yeah, I think you will really enjoy them. So disclaimer before we get into the 3 chapters that I will be talking about. There may be spoilers, nothing too big, but with this series, I just, in case there will be spoilers. I do want to mention that in today's book, there is, mention of homicide and suicide. Handle yourself with care. I'm going to be getting into today's story. Today we'll be discussing A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. The book follows Pippa Fitz-Amobi, otherwise known as Pip, a senior at Fairview High who has decided to dedicate her senior capstone project to figuring out what really happened in the murder-suicide case of Andrea Andy Bell and Salil Sal Singh that occurred 5 years prior. While everyone in Fairview has already written Sal off to be a murderer, even going as far as to harass his family that has survived him, whether it be through vandalizing their home, judgmental stares, or just harsh words, Pip believes that Sal is innocent and the person that has committed the actual crime of murdering Andy is still out there. And so the goal of her senior capstone project is to basically get justice for Andy and hopefully get closure for her family and also clear Sal's name. On Pip's journey to finding out the truth, she starts with learning who exactly Sal and Andy were, who they were to their friends and loved ones, who they were to each other, and who they were to themselves. Pip didn't know Sal very well as he was a senior in high school when this event occurred, and she's much younger than him. She saw him around town, but obviously, didn't know him that well. As for Andy, she knew who Andy was because she is best friends with Andy's younger sister, Becca Bell. And other than knowing her as an older sibling, she didn't really know much about her than what she presented of herself. On the day she decides to start her capstone project, she goes to the Singh's house. So when she arrives at the house, she knocks on the door, waits for someone to answer, and it happens to be Sal's younger brother, Ravi. She notices that it's Ravi and introduces herself and explains her topic of her capstone project. At first, Ravi is unsure of participating, but she has good reason to be. Everyone pretty much believes that, Sal did this crime and pretty much believes that Sal is this monster of which, he's not. In his brother's mind, he's not a monster. It's even printed in the newspaper, and as he's thinking about it, Ravi asks Pip why she wants to focus on a case that happened 5 years ago, a case that everyone believes has already been solved by the police. And she says that it's because she believes that Sal is innocent, and she wants to prove that Sal is in fact innocent. So in the first chapter, we also get to see Pip's first capstone entry log. In Pip's first entry log, she includes the information that was reported prior to Andy going missing, such as her car, what she was wearing, her appearance, what she looks like, etc., etc. She had also interviewed someone from the Missing Persons Bureau about what happens during a missing persons case. What happens after someone is reported missing, and what steps do the police take when it comes to a missing persons case in the first couple hours. I didn't write down the full conversation because I didn't want to spoil anything. I want you guys to check out this book, so I want to try and share as little information as possible. We're gonna move on to chapter 2, and in the beginning of chapter 2, Pip is trying to do her homework while her little brother Josh and her dog Barney are running around the house and playing, just causing a ruckus, being a little brother, being a dog. Josh is technically Pip's half-brother, as when she was only 10 months old, her biological father passed away in a car accident. So she really has no recollection of who her father is, besides the man that has raised her. But that's her dad nonetheless, and Josh is her brother nonetheless. We get into Pip's second capstone entry. Now, in this second entry, Pip is trying to piece together information from, newspaper reports and any other information she can find in media sources that will help piece together the case of Andy's disappearance. It unfortunately is proving difficult because she has to, fill in gaps with both guesswork and rumor. And through scouring social media, Pip discovered Andy's two best friends, Chloe Birch and Emma Hutton. And they actually helped a lot in the very beginning of the case. They even brought Andy's case to social media with the hashtag #FindAndy to really widen the search and to obviously help find Andy, see what happened to her, if anyone has information, etc., etc. The police end up speaking with Sal, which, if you're a true crime buff, you know that the first person that the police are going to go to is the spouse or significant other of the person that passed or is missing. And they look for, the ex-spouse or ex-partner that the person was involved in, just to see what kind of relationship they had, if they were involved in the case in any way, if they know any information. Sal was actually busy the night that Andy had disappeared. He was hanging out at his friend Max's house with 4 of his friends, Max being one of them. His name is Max Hastings. And then we have Naomi Ward, Jake Lawrence, and Millie Simpson. So the 4 of them plus Sal make 5. So the 5 of them were hanging out at Max's house. He tells police that he left Max's house at around 12:15 a.m. And when he gets home, his father confirms that he did reach home at 12:50 a.m. And the distance between Sal and Max's house, walking distance, is 30 minutes away. So, that would check out. His 4 friends had also confirmed his alibi, saying that he did in fact leave the house at 12:15. And along with, Mohan, Sal's father, with his testimony, his alibi was basically shut and closed. So there wasn't enough time for Sal to, commit the crime between walking home from Max's house. Missing posters had gone up for Andy on Sunday, and on Monday there was a search party for Andy. Tuesday, though, is when everything changes. Sal's 4 best friends decide to call the police one by one from their school and say that Sal had actually asked them to lie about his whereabouts on the night that Andy disappeared, and say that he left at 12:15 when in actuality he left at 10:30 p.m. instead of 12:15 a.m., which would mean that he had ample opportunity between 10:30 and 12:15 to quote-unquote commit the crime. There is an hour and 45 minutes that Sal was not accounted for, and nobody knows where he was at. And with this new discovery, it means that Sal basically becomes the number 1 suspect in this disappearing case in police's eyes. On the Tuesday, though, something else strange happens. No one can reach Sal. Sal's not picking up his phone. He's not answering text messages. It was later said and found out that Sal had actually texted his father Tuesday morning, a confession text of sort. And later that Tuesday evening, police who were continuing to search for Andy had found a body in the woods. And unfortunately, that body belonged to Sal Singh. and he was confirmed dead at the scene. They determined his death to be a suicide, and they said that Sal walked into the woods near his family home, took a large dose of sleeping pills, put a plastic bag over his head, and sealed it with an elastic tie, and he passed while he was unconscious. The police held a press conference later that night, didn't mention anything about Sal's death. They continued to focus on Andy's case and share the new information that Andy had left her house at 10:40 on Friday night. Her car was found the next morning on Wednesday on a small residential road. Andy's body was never found, so her case was closed administratively in the middle of June of 2014. And 18 months later, a court order was made to declare Andy officially dead in absentia. And although there was no trial to convict Sal of any crime or any wrongdoing in the case of Andy disappearing, the district attorney did make a statement on the news and stated after the ruling of Andy's death that the case against Sal would have been based off of circumstantial evidence and forensic evidence, and that Sal's guilt or innocence wasn't up to them to decide. It was for a judge and a jury to decide. But in the court of public opinion, Sal was already guilty. He was already this monster. He was guilty, unequivocally guilty. Now on to chapter 3, where we get kind of a glimpse into Pip's life, which we get more glimpses as the book goes along, but we get a glimpse into Pip's life with her friends. She gets an SOS text from her friend Lauren, and immediately gets up out of her house, gets in her car, and drives to the nearest store to pick up a king-size chocolate bar for Lauren. And when she gets to her friend Lauren's house, her other friend Cara is standing outside with an emergency breakup kit, which contains a box of tissues, chips and dip, and a plethora of those little sheet mask packs. They enter the house and make it to Lauren's room. She is under her comforter. She's been crying. She has her phone in her hand. So Cara takes the phone away from Lauren and says that for the next 24 hours, she's banned from looking from her phone. So Lauren explains to Pip and Cara that she had been broken up with over text. And the girls comfort her. They watch, a couple movies together. They, bring up all the bad things about her now ex-boyfriend, and why she's lucky to no longer be in a relationship with him, which, kudos to them. After watching about a movie and a half on Netflix, they start talking about their capstone project. Lauren is in disbelief that Pip has already gotten a jump start on her project, and Pip explains how she will be interviewing Ravi the next day and that she wants to talk to Naomi soon. Naomi is Cara's older sister, and Pip asks Cara if she could tell Naomi that she would be coming over to the house soon to talk to her about everything with Sal and Andy. And Cara agrees to tell Naomi that Pip would be coming over and asks Pip if she could go easy on her because the case is still something that affects her very deeply. It still makes her emotional. So Pip agrees to handle the situation with care. Now on to Pip's third capstone entry. And in this entry, Pip interviews Stanley Forbes, who is a reporter for the Fairview Mail, which is the local paper. She asks if he has any further information about the Andy and Sal case because national news didn't really do a deep dive into what happened. So she thought she could ask Stanley if he has any further information regarding the case, being that he is local. He explains to Pip how the lead investigator on the case explained the information about Andy's disappearance and even gave him information that would link Sal to the case. This evidence that would link Sal to the case would be blood that was found on Andy's trunk of her car, and that they believe Sal had killed Andy elsewhere and then transported her body somewhere else. The investigator had also told Stanley that Andy was a victim of a sexually motivated murder and considerable efforts were made to hide her body. Pip questions Stanley more about his articles regarding the case, asking about his word choice of describing Sal as a killer, a murderer, and even a monster without any type of conviction, saying he should have used the word allegedly. Stanley decides to retort and say that a child should not be telling him how to do his job. He even says that it was obvious that Sal committed this crime and says that his guilt is what drove him to suicide. Like he actually knows that. Pip questions Andy on why he's so certain that Sal is the murderer and the person who is behind this whole thing. So he says, and I quote, "Evidence aside, he was her boyfriend, right? And it's always the boyfriend or the ex-boyfriend. Not only that, Salil was Indian."
What do you mean by that?
Which in my opinion is a pointless thing to include, but it just shows the utter ignorance and intolerance that Stanley held for Sal and the Singhs in general, like even before Andy disappeared. So Pip asked him how any of that was relevant to the case and the articles that he wrote, which, as would I, had that, statement been made in front of me, because it makes no sense as to why you would bring that up. To which he said, they have a different life than us. They don't quite treat women like we do. Pip is taken aback by this, but she continues to stand her ground, which good for her. And she calls him irresponsible for accusing someone of being a murderer without the use of the word allegedly. Furthermore, to call Sal a monster, again, no conviction was made. He was investigated, but obviously, due to the circumstances, there could be no further investigation. She continues to bring up how Stanley described Sal in his articles regarding the Andy Bell case, comparing it to how he handled the Stratford Strangler articles that he was writing, and referencing the person who was convicted of the crime of being a lovesick young man. The lovesick young man that he's talking about murdered 5 women. So, to which Pip asked if he got that description because he is a white man. To which Stanley tells Pip that she needs to relax. Which the utter gall of this man to tell Pip to relax, which one, you never tell a girl or woman to relax. Especially in this case when you, one, accused Sal of being a murderer, called him a monster, and now you're bringing his race into something that has nothing to do with his race. At this point, Stanley is upset that Pip is chewing him up right now, as she should be. And he asks her, again, out of being upset, why does she care so much about, what he wrote and calling Sal a murderer and how it can't hurt him. She explains Sal's family is still alive, they survived him, and it affects them, it hurts them. Stanley says that this is a waste of his time. I guess he has better things to do. And he asks Pip if she really believes that Sal is innocent against the expertise of senior officers. To which she says that she believes there are gaps in the case against Sal. Stanley again makes another insensitive comment around Sal, this time surrounding the way that he passed. When Pip points out this insensitivity to his death, Stanley decides to say that it was insensitive of Sal to murder Andy. Pip answers with what I would assume is an exasperated allegedly, because at this point I'm sure she must be tired of how this man is handling this conversation. Stanley at this point is at his wit's end, which I don't understand why, when he's the one making racist comments, but I digress. And in his own exasperation, he tells Pip how Andy had received a death threat in her locker, says that Sal is the one that sent it, and Sal made through on that death threat. And again, he asks Pip if she really believes that Sal is innocent. She says maybe he is, and you're a racist, intolerant hack who, and then he cuts the line.
Now that's how you clear a bitch.
And with the end of that conversation, Pip has new information that she was looking for. She pieces together basically the police's order of events on what she calls her murder map. It is a map of Fairview where she added a couple of assumptions that she made based on the information that she already had. One was of the several ways that you could take from Max's house to Sal's house, Main Street being the quickest way according to Google Maps, and Main Street is also a well-lit street. It's a bit safer one to walk on at night. It also provides an intercept point where Sal and Andy could have met up. This is also where Pip finds an inconsistency. Both Sal and Andy had left their respective positions at around 10:30, with Sal leaving at 10:30, Andy leaving her house at 10:40. So this means that they agreed to meet up, but there were no text messages or calls that had been recorded by the police saying that, you know, they agreed to meet up with each other. So how did they plan to meet up? Did they plan this at school? And why did they not agree to just meet up at Max's house when everybody else was there? Sal was there, Max was there, Naomi was there, Jake was there, Millie was there. Why not just meet up there? And that is where I leave you guys today. If you guys enjoyed this video and the beginning of this new series, please give it a thumbs up. I'm so excited to be starting this series. I am gonna get a backdrop to just, you know, help the ambiance fit a little bit better. I hope you guys do pick up this book. There are technically 3 more books, 2 more books in the series, and then there is a short novel that Holly Jackson did come out with. I'm on the last book. I still haven't finished it yet, but I will. I can do videos on the 2nd and 3rd book, and then once I read the short novel, do one on that if you guys are interested. And yeah, I will see you guys next week for another new series that I have planned, and I will see you guys soon. Goodbye.